Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody, beautiful inside and out on this earth, it is League Unlock. That is Mark. My name is Eric. We got competitive league back. Mark wasn't here for day one of the Midseason Cup, so we'll give him the quick soapbox speech for his T1 boys to try and give them an excuse for why they didn't make it out.
There's no excuses, man, for not getting out of this one. It is disappointment central for T1 fans like myself not getting out of here, especially considering, hey, Joe March, CEO, this was the big push was from T1 as one of the very first squads that said, let's get this Midseason Cup set up. And oh boy, one of the ones bounced out of here, and one of the ones absolutely with intentions to go deep into this tournament. Not happening. I think Faker certainly showed up on the day. That's one of the things that a lot of people are always questioning when things go wrong for SKT, is whether the Demon God himself, Unkillable Kid, he's got it. Faker was there doing the performances. Everything was fine. But hey, we got a Teddy playing Yasuo in the bot lane. And to be fair to Teddy, this isn't something that Teddy's necessarily known for. And this is my sign of, okay, you know what? They really were maybe having some fun with some of these champion picks, maybe a little bit different, trying some things. I'm not going to overreact on this type of statement. I know people are looking at this one and saying, oh, here, SKT, the chokers are back again. No, come on, guys. Like, have some respect for this organization and these players.
That was one of the all-time worst tweets to have Excel tweeting about T1 being chokers, man. Come on. Come on, Excel.
And you know what? Even considering what's going on with the past couple of years, I would accept something like that maybe from G2. It'd be out of characteristics, out of character for someone like Fnatic to do that. But G2, you could take the banter. G2 has got some performances. They've got a series head-to-head against T1 and the advantage. I can handle that one. Excel gunning for the three-time champions heads? Not on my watch.
It's a best-of-1 group stage. I know there are no excuses for T1. They didn't play up to the level that everyone was expecting. But the format is really the only time you can not overreact at all when you're losing a couple of games on a given day and you're out. It's a short tournament. It happens quickly. But day 2 action, or Group B action, whatever you want to call it, the other round robin, 2 LCK, 2 LPL, and it was 2 Chinese teams on day 1. Korea seeing if they can bounce back with Gen G and Dragon X, and things kicked off with Gen G going up against the champions from the LPL in JD Gaming, and this is where you got to see BDD's Azir. And we've talked about it before. This man has the best Azir in the LCK right now.
It is so absolutely butterly smooth that this guy's got the moves with Azir. BDD pulling it out for this one. And really, this was the start to the day that the LCK wanted, especially after yesterday with T1 not getting out, not advancing on. You had to be looking at this series and these matches and saying, look, I know that, Gen G didn't really impress us in the finals against T1 or in that type of nature, but we really need to see these performances today to hopefully keep our Korean hopes in this tournament. Gen G and BDD specifically right here with game 1 said, yep, we're going to be answering the bell. We're going to be here today.
Yeah, and the Clid versus Kanavi matchup, surprisingly, you didn't really see Kanavi on a carry, which we've seen the majority of the spring split. He was on the Trundle against Clid's Kindred, who had some absolutely pixel-perfect ultis throughout this game.
And if we're looking at some champion picks and where they're heading towards out of this event, Kindred has seemingly been one that has been certainly very strong in the jungle position, especially identified really by the LCK teams, have really been looking at Kindred as their ideal jungle pick. And there are certainly going to be picks that we can talk about on the LPL side that are very strong for them that I don't think that the LCK have either prepared for or maybe would anticipate.
So much like day 1 action, the LCK gets out to a 1-0 start. Okay, just like T1 against FPX. We go into the second match, Dragon X versus Invictus Gaming. And remember, IG not the world championship form coming into this event, and DRX, a lot of people, myself included, were talking about them ahead of Gen G coming into this event. Their first match, there were 4 support bans against Kyria. You had the Thresh, the Pike, the Karma, and the Bard all thrown against him. If that doesn't speak to the level that this rookie's playing at, I don't know what does.
Yeah, it certainly is being identified here across regions now. You can see it. Not only did teams in the LCK quickly learn, like, look, we got to pay attention to this guy down on the bot side, not only with Def, but we got to pay attention to what Kyrie's doing and to his champion pool to help support the rest of the squad. This was hit from the other side. Now, the LPL saying, yeah, you are absolutely the real deal, up to the test. We got to take care of ourselves. And even with that being taken care of, not able to take care of DRX.
No, because Kyria played the Senna and finished 2-0 in 13 and looked pretty great on it. But the story of this game was the top side of the map, because you had Doran getting some solo kills on the Shy, on the Wukong into the Lucian matchup, and the Shy finished this game 0-6-0. 0-6-0.
Oh, man, that one, not what you're looking for, but that is absolutely a good sign for Doran. Doran looking to bounce back. Look, we've been looking for him to really solidify himself as one of the top laners in the LCK. We saw him make a couple of strides towards this split, but certainly still some room for improvement. This is a good sign heading towards summer of some really strong individual play.
And it's Ning every game for IG at this event. He struggled a little bit on the Lee Sin 0-5-4. The top side of the map definitely did not put up a good showing for IG. Even the bot lane was getting just straight up 2v2'd. It was really Rookie just looking around the map like, team? Team, please?
Yeah, this was not a very fun situation for Rookie to be put in this game. And look, I don't know if it's going to be improving anytime soon on this day.
2-0. Start for the LCK, not what happened on day one. And right away, the two 1-0 squads, the brethren from Korea, Dragon X and Gen G, met up in the third match of the day. Somebody getting handed their first loss, and it was Gen G. Piosik and Chovy both had fantastic games against Gen G. You had the Graves in the jungle for Piosik, and we've talked a lot, you in particular have talked about Piosik. Sometimes he farms a little bit too much. Throughout most of this game, he had the second most CS in the game behind Deft, and it was not that far behind on the Graves. He was 2, sometimes 3 levels ahead of Clid. Again, in that Lee Sin matchup, Lee Sin did not look good in this one. Chovy piloting the Rumble mid. This time it was Deft on the Senna. Dragon X looked good in this game.
That's one of the complaints that people have had, and myself included, against Piosik, is that sometimes we've seen him be a little bit too PvE focused, too much on trying to get himself stronger that way as opposed to helping out these laners. Was certainly still going on in this game, power farming all the way through. It didn't matter, though, because he was still there when it was required for his laners. And as we've talked about, at least over the last month now, and I know people in the scene have certainly talked about a little bit longer, Graves is a very, very strong pick, and we certainly saw that power coming through in this matchup.
Yeah, and an uncharacteristically bad game in terms of positioning out of Ruler in this one. He was 0-5-2, and usually he's the AD carry you're talking about, always being in the perfect position throughout the entire game. He got caught out a couple of times just kind of meandering in no man's land on the map.
And that's really unfortunate for the Gen G squad, because that's not exactly what you would have ever expected from Ruler, especially even from this past split. We haven't really seen that necessarily be the issue for Ruler. So for it to show up in this game, absolutely not what Gen G was calling for.
And with that, DRX moved to 2-0, pretty much prime position to be getting out and advancing to the semifinals. Gen G sit at 1-1. Next match was the winless Chinese teams. They both, of course, only played one game. JDG versus IG, and the second game for them. But Kanavi, he's not on the trundle this time. He gets the Nidalee. He absolutely annihilates Ning and the rest of IG. 5-0 and 6 on the big cat, and he was just all over the map, and Ning hardly got to play this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things that were going on in this one, but you certainly have to start with Kanavi's performance on the Nidalee and looking at just how much he made it impossible for Ning to do anything or have any type of impact later on in this game. Just so far ahead, made those levels stick. And this is one of those champions, the Nidalee that we had identified in these patches coming through that we might see. We saw it already a little bit in the LCK towards the end of the spring split. We had identified that this is going to be something that with a couple of buffs here could be seen us stronger and more reliable in the meta. Seeing it right here and in the hands of someone like Navi, man, that was disgusting.
Yeah, jungle's a lot more fun to watch when you've got picks like Graves and Nidalee coming through, where even just seeing a jungler 2 to 3 levels ahead of the opposition, when team fights roll around, they're absolutely lethal. That was, some of these Nidalee spears were Nidalee of old, doing 70% of guys' health bars, which is not very fun to play against.
A tactical nuke strapped to a stick, man. That's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's just like Zoe. And the combo with the Ezreal. By the way, this Death's Dance Ezreal build that we're seeing, the damage is insane with this build. It is disgusting.
Yeah, the damage is insane. And, man, again, it's Ezreal. You've got the moves and adding in that lifesteal. Feeling pretty good.
IG, go to 0-2 with that one. JDG moved to 1-1. And Gen G were right back on the rift to avoid that 0-3. I didn't think IG would be the one to go 0-3 or be the potential, but they did match up against Gen G, and that's exactly what they did. They finished 0-3, and to be honest, people weren't expecting too much out of this version of IG coming into this event, and they didn't really show in the playoffs that you should be that excited with how they did in the third place match and the semifinals. I didn't expect them to be this underwhelming, and the Shy, he was underwhelming in the playoffs, more than underwhelming. He was feeding at times 2-18-6 across 3 games at this event. This is not the Shy that we have come to know over the last 2 years.
No, and this is not even the Invictus Gaming that we've come to know over the past couple of years. And you look at this performance, and yes, the trend is there that a lot of people, ourselves included, weren't expecting a ton from IG heading towards this event. But you still knew with the IG roster and the talent that is there that, look, if they get on a hot run, if one of the players really decides to turn it on and gets going, anything is possible for IG. Except none of that happened at all this event. And the only one that you can actually really say, other than Rookie being pretty solid in the mid lane, the only one that really showed up and delivered any type of actual performance is Puff. Puff actually showed up here towards the end of the day and delivering a little bit of excitement for IG fans. But
honestly, he had that one team fight that he played really well. He got a quadra kill. Outside of that, I was kind of underwhelmed with him in the first 2 games. He had that one highlight play, sure. He played it really well. He was clean. But yeah, other than that, it was really only Rookie doing anything. And even in game 3, the Echo pick did not work out for him in any way, shape, or form. He got annihilated by BDD.
And when you're thinking about IG and how this moves onwards for them, like, it's one of those things that you still have a little bit of concern, obviously, when the spring split ended and we talked about the performance of the Shy and how things had turned around and how much attention he was getting and how he wasn't able to play outside of that anymore. I don't think that is going to be a trend that will continue. I'm fairly certain that the Shy's skill will shine through and get back out of this type of slump. But there's no denying that this is absolutely a slump now, given the performance that we had during the spring playoffs. And especially now here, and yes, I don't want to overreact, as I've been talking about with my T1 boys and how things were disappointing endings for them. You still got to be treating it the same where IG, but you still can see the signs. And there is, I think, a little bit, obviously a lot more to be worried about on the IG side compared to T1. And specifically for IG, I'd be a little bit concerned about what's going on towards the top side with the Shy, and maybe if that's a matter of, again, having to figure out something with Ning. But look, it's not been working in spring, and it's not working right now, and that is supposed to be one of your absolute strengths.
The drop-off just makes no sense. I mean, this is a team that finished first in the regular season from the LPL, and with T1, you had the confidence and the expectations coming into this event. IG coming off back-to-back, pretty much terrible best-of-5s against FPX and TES. So you really combine those two, and the Shy was not good across any of those games. What are they going to do with Ning? They need a new jungler for the summer split. There's been rumors going around, nothing really official yet, but something needs to change with IG. But let's give a little bit of credit because we hardly talked about it. BDD in this game, he was legendary at 20 minutes. He was 8-1, finished 13-2 on the Yasuo. That's how you make Yasuo Gragas work, T1. Put the Yasuo mid. Wow, looks pretty good.
Yeah, that ain't my Yasuo. That ain't your Yasuo. That ain't your team's Yasuo. That's the enemy team Yasuo, and that's BDD putting in some darn dirty work on it. Hey, what are you gonna say? My man was hitting every one of those Sasakis. Man was hitting them left, right, and center. It was beautiful. It was anime on the Rift.
And it's a lot easier when you can just ulti off, even one-man Gragas ults across the map, basically. The Gragas pick works pretty darn well with Yasuo, which is why you almost see them never drafted separately. So Gen G 2-1, IG 0-3 as we mentioned. The last match, huge implications. DRX versus JDG. DRX wins. They're 3-0. Both LCK teams get through. It's a magical time for Korean fans of League of Legends. If JDG wins, then you had the three-way tiebreaker, which, of course, is what we ended up getting with 3 2-1 squads. JDG in that match. It was, again, Kanavi playing well and kind of living up to the expectations. The Echo Jungle, not many other teams are playing that right now. They're playing it in the mid lane, sure. Went up against PO6 Trundle, and this was... It looked like DRX were going to win this game, Mark. The early game was good for them. You thought this might snowball over.
Early game was good, yeah. Everything else later, not exactly so much for the DRX squad. I think that it's important, yes, as we've been talking about JDG, and obviously one of the big points and the most exciting play that you see from them is from Kanavi. But I think that especially on the day, someone like Yagao does deserve a shout out here. This is one of the players that we talk about, his play style in the mid lane as one of these guys that, especially when you're going up against some of these unbelievably talented mid laners that you have at the very top of the table in the LPL, let alone the stacked lineup that you have here at the Midseason Cup. You've got to be thinking about someone like Yagao. We've talked about just making it through laning phase and being effective in the team fights later. Man, he is going up against some of the hardest mid laners that you ever have to do in the laning phase, and then as well some of the best team fighting mid laners in the world, and he absolutely showed up on the day and looked like world-class talent.
And one of the big things people, especially somebody like LS, love to call out, and one of the big moments in this game was DRX prioritizing Baron over the Ocean Soul. They could have waited, just gotten the Soul for free. They go for Baron and end up having this weird fight over the Soul. Ocean Soul greater than Baron buff, am I right?
Yeah, I don't know how this is still we're through the spring split, and this is still a mistake that teams are making. This was identified not only by analysts, by ourselves, by people higher than us in solo queue, lower than us in solo queue. People identified that yes, the Dragon Soul is the supreme neutral objective that you gotta be capturing on the Rift, and if you have a chance to get it over anything else. Yeah, I mean, Cloud, that doesn't count.
Not a real soul.
Anything else, like, why would you ever not prioritize this type of power buff? These are the buffs that you need to be able to look at and identify what you're going to be doing with them in the actual immediate situation. And almost never will you get the actual value being higher from whatever you're going to be taking down, from however you're going to be sieging with the Baron, as opposed to picking up that permanent buff of getting the the Dragon Soul, and then even getting towards Elder fights. I'm telling you what, if they pick up that Dragon Soul, we're talking about a different result.
And it just really felt like that DRX comp needed it even more, because there's no question, you heard Wadid talking about it on the stream, they had a way better late game comp, and you saw that in the team fights. DRX didn't snowball enough in the early game. They snowballed a bit, but not enough. They needed that Dragon Soul. They needed that extra health in these fights to even win them, because it was pretty much back-to-back-to-back team fights that Kyria, it was so close to picking up some kills on the Pike and resetting, but was never really able to. The team fights went the way of JDG, and the tiebreakers were forced.
And that's especially one of the best things about that in this situation of examining whether it's worth for Baron or the Soul, is that it's so clear. It's so absolutely clear in the later team fights that Dragon Soul would have made an unbelievable difference in multiple interactions in those team fights for DRX. And without it, they lose. Without
it, they have to play more games on the Rift. After 6 games already being played, we're playing some more. 2 more sets of games, and it started off with the Korean teams, Gen.G versus Dragon X, playing. Winner goes right through to semis. Loser plays JDG because JDG took longer to win their games. Gotta love that old tiebreaker caveat. But when you have 2 Korean teams on the Rift, you know what's going to happen, Mark. It's a resident sleeper, 1-1 in kills right through to 27 minutes into this game, and then straight up, 1 team fight. There's 1 team fight. Gen.G wins, the game's over. That's the whole game.
Yeah. Hey, it was a busy afternoon of ping pong, and then you know what? Let's have a team fight. And there, because that was the game.
GG.
Yeah, we've seen this definitely a lot this year in the LCK, and this has certainly been a historical trend of the slow pattern of the LCK games. This is the full extension of it here. When something's on the line, take a step back. Let's just farm it up, boys, and things will be okay.
And the most interesting thing for me in this game, because it was so incredibly slow pace, 0 turrets for Dragon X, by the way. Even though it was no kills, Gen.G was very much in control pretty much the entire game. But Trundle, Olaf, Kindred, Jarvan, Graves were all banned, which means you had Nocturne versus Sejuani in the jungle matchup. But not one we've seen very often.
No, it's been a while since we've had that, and certainly when you're looking at this matchup specifically, man, there's a lot of pressure on DRX to get advancing against JDG, because you're looking at these players and you're looking at the squad on DRX and how much you can benefit from moving on and playing in these semifinals and the finals, and the experience, the growth that you can have. You've got to be getting this if you're DRX.
Yeah, I mean, you had the opportunity, but it was another, and his 3rd straight, all 3 games Gen.G won. BDD picks up player of the game. And with that, Gen.G, first Korean team to make it through to the semifinals. But the dream was still alive for DRX, despite losing 2 games in a row. Still had another chance to qualify against JD Gaming, who they lost to a little bit earlier on in the day. And similar to their other loss against them, the early game, I thought this game was going to be done at 22 minutes because it was snowballing even faster than what we saw the first time these guys met. And again, it was the mid game and the team fights, and a lot of people are criticizing the draft that CV Max and DRX put together here. You can criticize the build that Chovy did on set, which was 0 damage set, but it's another marquee elimination game where we get Chovy on a tank.
Yeah, and look, I understand that set might not be your quote-unquote traditional tank, given
that build he is
some absurd benefits that he has in his kit. But even to get to some of those absurd benefits, you got to build a little bit, just a tiny bit towards that in this type of situation, knowing the game and everything else. And again, as our criticism and everyone else has been for a lot of times in these pressure moments, this is not what Chovy has built his reputation of his career on, is not on tanks and his performance on them. Why are we trying to put these pinnacle moments, these absolute crucial tipping points on tank champions for him? Trust me, this guy needs to be unleashed on something with some more power in that kit, because he is way too skilled, way too smart to be used on something like that in these games. And look, even at that point, his individual performance wasn't there. But I tell you what, if you're putting him on something with a little bit more agency, a little bit more power, I still feel that even if he's delivering a less than stellar performance, it's going to have a better impact for the squad.
Why do you trust Doran on Akali more than Chovy?
And hold on, that's a separate issue to really be talking about, is that I don't understand this idea of the Akali in that situation. I know that you've identified earlier on, you showed that, yeah, the Wukong was great and these type of champions. So you have looked at a quote unquote traditional things that might seem a little bit more so outside the meta than you have been seeing in the LCK. But you go back to Akali, who is still the Akali that's had, her kneecaps smashed in with a baseball bat. Why?
And and to opt into going top lane into Mordekaiser, where sure, they farm for 20 minutes and then you're waiting for Doran to pop off in a team fight, but it was Zoom who popped off in the team fight to basically get JDG back into the game. It looked like it was lost. He ends up going into the death realm, popping his stopwatch in front of 4 people, and then all of a sudden JDG turned that team fight around. The Mordekaiser, the impact he had compared to Doran's Akali is, you can't even measure it.
And I hate this idea of the Mordekaiser as a counter into set. We've talked about this a lot. People like LS have talked about it a lot, that, you know, outside of obviously very niche situations with the ultimate, you're not really getting any advantage or winning any type of matchups or type of situation. But when you're talking about Zoom playing Mordekaiser, this is one of the most disgusting champions that you can put on for a player like Zoom. Zoom has shown so much proficiency with this champion. And as you talked about, that is one of the big things. Gets into those team fights, looks like he's, oh man, it's going to go. What he's into. Hits that stopwatch, baby, and the team fight turns all around. We've seen him do it week after week after week in the LPL. Man has lost 3 times. 3 losses since this dude has appeared back in the lineup for the squad. Incredible by Zoom.
And I mean, across the board, JDG, they just team fought better. There was no damage out of the Dragon X lineup. There were so many fights where Deft is just stacking up spears.
Oh,
and
man.
you see the Rend come out, and it's like, wow, that was underwhelming, really. He didn't really clean it up. But yeah, Doran,
towards the very end, when he gets absolutely blasted bottom lane by like 4 or 5 of them, you're just like, that's the tilter. That's the one.
Dragon X, 2-0 start, 3 games. They needed to win 1 out of 3 games. They dropped them all. They're not going to semifinals. JDG, they came through. They look great in that last one to advance to top 4. At least Gen G saved this whole event for the LCK by at least one Korean team making it into top 4.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I think Damwon's feeling pretty good. They beat T1, guys. That's
true.
We were supposed to help T1 in our group. Oh, my bad.
Hey,
when you're looking at this, what's the bigger disappointment to you though? As you're talking about, you know, a DRX getting out to that 2-0 start on the day and not making it through as one of these Korean representatives, or is it T1 not getting out of that group that everyone all across the board, all analysts had T1 at the worst coming out of that group in 2nd place?
I think if you're looking just at this event, it's Dragon X, because not only did they have a 2-0 start, which I think at the start of the day, people even said, all right, they're locked into semifinals, because it, like 9 times out of 10, 98% of the time you're getting out in this situation. And to even have the early leads, the early lead they had in that last tiebreaker, you thought this game was done. They had all of the opportunity and all of the tools to close out these games, and 3 times in a row, they didn't get it done.
I think that the initial loss and mistakes to Damwon by T1 is the biggest whoopsie. Yeah, that is the biggest whoopsie of all the Korean teams at this event. That's the biggest one that hurts, because obviously losing out there and then the way things went out with the rest of the group put you in that type of situation where you had to get advancing by top, and look, top is so strong and a good team that I'm not going to discredit them in any type of way. So that was a separate situation. But you looked at DRX getting out to these 2 games victories and then saying you needed to find a way to get that one more. And you looked at the performances in those games where they needed just that one more. There's so many just slight adjustments, slight changes, slight dragon pickups that literally just absolutely change it around completely to the guarantee that DRX is moving on into these semifinals. So certainly I'd have to agree that is going to be my biggest disappointment. Personally, it's got to be T1, because I'd love to see my boys keep going in this tournament. But DRX from a strict play point, that has got to be disappointing, not advancing.
And now semifinals, talked about 3 LPL teams. It's JDG versus FPX in first one.
Semifinal rematch.
And Top eSports versus Gen G. Whoever Knight goes up against now is kind of like the marquee matchup for me, because I just want to see him against anybody. And it's even better because BDD played so well in that group stage match. That's the matchup to watch out of either semifinals.
And the best thing about this is we had hyped up Knight versus whoever was going to be Knight versus Faker, all these type of matchups that you could get because, relatively speaking, as far as internationally and against these different regions, we haven't been able to see Knight go up against these type of mid laners.
What did he do against Damwon?
Exactly, and prove how amazing he is. And we're seeing it now at this event. And look, the moves that he's got, yeah, those are the moves that he's bringing out every single day in the LPL. So certainly if you've liked what you've seen now, stick around and watch the LPL Summer Split. Please do yourself that favor. But secondly, yeah, heading into this matchup against BDD, the play that we saw from BDD today, I think Knight outshines him given the performances that we saw yesterday. But man, this is going to be a colossal clash in the mid lane. You better believe it.
No T1. So who's your favorite? Final four? Who's winning, Mark?
I'm gonna go with the hot hand. It's gonna have to be JDG. They're gonna come through. They're gonna push through. I believe that they're gonna finally say, you know what? Enough of putting Kanavi on stuff that isn't a carry. Let's just go full into that carry lifestyle. Bring it in. I don't know if FPX is maybe gonna bounce back. I'd love to see them put out Khan in this series. I think that is what we talked about in their last matchup against JDG, not seeing Khan, and maybe you wanted to see a little bit more Khan. So I think that could be something in an event like this. Let's see Khan and make that change and see if that was the difference maker.
Yeah, he played all 3 games on the group stage, so wouldn't be shocked if he played the majority of the best of 5s as well. I feel like this is Top's time, man. Jackie Love, they look like a different team with him around. And 369 continues to develop. As long as Karsa just plays slightly above average. He doesn't need to be incredible. Just not what he was at times in the spring regular season.
Man, you could put any jungler from the LCS on top, and I'm pretty sure that Knight would find a way to carry them through. I don't know, man. It's pretty impressive stuff. These
are some bold statements here. We're putting Wiggly on top eSports, and let's see what happens.
Don't do my boy Knight dirty like that. Come on.
Streamathon, the 48-hour hoopla gets going over the weekend, and we will have the semifinals and the finals of the Midseason Cup throughout. We'll recap it all towards the end of the weekend. But that's it today for League Unlock. Mark and Eric here with you guys. Thanks for hanging out as always, and we'll catch you lovely people on the flippity flop.